Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flourish by Design. What is this power that we're talking about? Women's empowerment. Have you ever thought about what's the power? What's the true power that we hold? Let's find out. Welcome, everyone. I'm Caroline. I'm your host, and I'm the founder of Flourish by Design, where I love to encourage women to flourish from the inside out. So tonight, what we're going to be talking about, I just wanted to open it up to have a conversation around empowerment and what is your true power. So just want to have a little heart-to-heart really tonight, because last week I announced that I was going to be running this next season, this new season, and it's going to be about owning our power, you know? And there's many different ways that we can own our power. And I'm going to go through many different facets of that. And every month I'm going to have different people on to talk about different topics around areas of our life where we can become more empowered. But to really deepen ourselves into the journey before we start to uncover all these aspects, I wanted to make a discussion night really around looking at how do we actually feel about this, you know? Sometimes when we talk about women's empowerment, it can be a very negative thing. We can feel, you know, feminism. It can look like man hatred, you know, and the minute you say anything that's about feminine, you know, leadership with regards to women, it can have a very negative connotation. So I just wanted to clear the field here that I am absolutely not a man hater. I'm actually a complete lover of men, and that men have been an amazing just support to me in my life. Hugely. I had a massively strong, close relationship with my father, and really I would say he is the one who saw me and really encouraged me to, you know, shine bright like a diamond in my life. And he just filled me with all of his wisdom from, you know, the age of dot to now, and I'm eternally grateful for him. I get upset thinking about it. But I also had two brothers that were always my bodyguards too, and I am so grateful for the male friends that I have in my life and supporters. And in my master's now, I have fantastic mentors and professors that have helped me to reach excellence. Like Peter Gillis in Trinity College, who was the head of innovation there, and has really, you know, I definitely feel he ran the master's program, and he holds the students up to high standards and really gave me great encouragement. And I reached my 1-1. And I really feel that I want to make that very clear, that when I speak about feminism, it's feminine leadership I talk about. It is actually bringing the best out in women. It's nothing to do with men. It's actually looking at women. I always say, let's just look at ourselves. We're not pointing fingers at anybody else. We have the power within ourselves to become who we were designed to become. And there is a difference between feminine leadership and feminism. So to look at that distinction tonight is really important for me to define what I mean by that. And what I mean by that is actually bringing out the crown jewels of what a woman is, and which I feel is her ability to empathize and to actually lead with softness and with grace and with that deep compassion that we can bring to situations, into conflict resolution, into negotiations where many different communities are involved, and we can bring a different type of understanding of how negotiations can be settled in a compassionate way, where we're putting children as number one priority. So we can see in Gaza what's happening. So across the world, children are the ones that are being devastated by the decisions that are made in leadership and high level. And what I would see is that there isn't a balance of power, of decision making. So that's what I would like to see more of: women that are capable, that have brilliant minds and are very able to articulate their ideas and understand policy and understand all aspects that can actually help society. And for myself, I have two children that are raised. So one in second year in college, another just about to enter into college. So I'm in a new phase of my life where I return to education, and I am interested in decisions that are being made in education, wanting to make change for what I can see when my grandchildren will be coming, maybe, 10, 20 years time, who knows, or sooner, who knows. But I am concerned about my students, their lives, my friends who are, 30s, 40s, planning to have children and families. What kind of a world are they going into? What kind of a world are we designing, and are we doing it consciously? And are all the voices that need to be heard being heard? So this stage of my life, I was lucky enough to be able to stay at home with my kids, and I made a radical decision when I was, in my 30s. I started having my first alarm when I was 30, and then got when I was 32. To stay at home and to work from home, which was very unusual. And I broke the mold when it came to, what we would say at the time that wasn't a feminine, empowering thing to do. Was really looked at, why you're staying at home, could you not, have your kids, somebody else look after them and keep going with your career. But it was really, really important to me that I was to raise my own children, and I wanted to give them a beautiful upbringing that I had given, and I was lucky that I was able to do that, and had worked around them and was able to, I would say, pour into them everything that I felt was important, which was music, cooking, baking, the creative arts. The kitchen was like, in one side of it was the messy kitchen, always baking and cooking, and the other side was the art. The kitchen table was full of paints and pottery and making and everything all the time. And it was just amazing with music, and it was full of the joys of life. And that's what I feel is the most important thing: community and friendship and family. That's what helps raise children. And I feel that sometimes when what we call progress isn't progress. It's not progress if children are being disregarded, and when they are they're the ones that are paying the price for our indecision on topics that are needing urgent decisions, when to take into consideration this global village that we're all living in. So when it comes to feminine leadership, I'm very interested in women who, in developing this innate feeling, that longing, I suppose, to become more of who they are. And I know from education that when I have first years coming into me as freshers, they're coming straight from their school systems, and one of the biggest things that I have to do with them is decondition them. So I need to open them up. They come in quite structured and kind of, like statues nearly, and afraid to move out of their seats, afraid to speak their mind. I would say they're in black and white. They usually have maybe not a great perception of themselves. And over time, I get them to stand up, to walk around, to feel comfortable in the room, to speak naturally, to be able, everything they share is celebrated, and they start to light up and they get this twinkle in their eye. And I know that, yes, there's such brilliance going to come through once I see that, because I know they feel safe around me, and that's my job. then I gradually guide them through what they need to learn in the syllabus, and they just start to blossom into these beautiful, creative, well, expressive students that can really flourish into who they are. Because it's not about making other people like a carbon copy of each other, which the Industrial Revolution had shaped the education system. And it's the same with women. And the idea of who we think we are and we should be has been a massive limitation in our empowerment for many, many, many decades and centuries. And what I can see is what's happening now is this beautiful power, that's inner power that is wanting to come through. And it's that spark. And what is our power? Our power, our true power, is the power of our creativity. It's the power of that beautiful sacred seed that we have within us that's been planted there since the day we were born. And it's our potential that it only takes a little bit of light to be seen by somebody to spark that, so that it will break open and then it will start to grow and it will flourish into the world. And there's such beautiful gifts that every one of you have innately in yourself, that the world will just be much more beautiful place when you bring that forward. So my job here is to put that twinkle in your eye and to bring the magic out from which each woman, every person that I meet, any of the students, male and female, it doesn't matter age, ability, race, religion, we all have that within us. And it just takes somebody to see that and then to feed into that and to nourish that and to water that and to allow you be who you truly are. So I feel that to understand that power, that we hold that within ourselves, and power is not, power over someone. That word sometimes can be used in leadership in a very negative way, because when we say power, it is actually control and power. Power and control is what we're used to seeing in leadership. But actually power, true power, is the power underneath people to lift them up so that they can reach the potential. And you need to be secure in yourself to be able to do that. Have found your own power and your own purpose for being here, to be able to do that for other people. So just to be aware of that the power that I'm talking about is not a power of controlling others and authority over people. Yes, we need to have authority to be able to run organizations, and the authority that is given to us once we have reached certain amount of proficiency in our careers. That's needed because of experience, but the authority should always be in equilibrium. So we're bringing balance and understanding that there's a mutual respect for each person. That has to be number one when it comes to any leadership. So for women, to owning our own power means bringing back all of those aspects of ourselves that we have given away. And women have given away a lot of power over the decades and over the centuries in different ways through cultural conditioning. And it takes a long time to undo that. But in my journey, it took, I suppose, from the age of 40 to now to really understand the pathway of human thought throughout time, to study many different aspects of leadership, and also study myself and to understand my own workings and what my strengths and my weaknesses, to be able to manage myself, to be able to be in a position to be able to lead people. And I feel that I can bring you through more quickly than my journey, because I can condense it down, and that's what this series is all about, owning our power so that we can bring our power back into ourselves, so that we can become more powerful in the world And that word that came to mind this morning when I was thinking about it was distilled. And it was funny because my son is actually distilling something at the moment. And I was saying to him, my God, that's what I feel I do, for myself, as I sit in stillness and I bring myself back, and I bring myself back I bring my power back into myself, so that I become a more potent version of who I am and who I'm meant to be in the world, so that I can serve in a much more powerful way, and I can make more powerful decisions for my life that will reflect back into the generations. So I'm much more conscious of my decisions than I have been previously. And I feel those skills and that slowing down and learning how to distill our energy is really super powerful for these times. And the journey for me, what I wanted to speak to you about as well, around the personal branding. Why do I talk about personal branding? And it's been a really interesting journey because I didn't actually know too much about personal branding before I started that journey. Only it actually was what helped me to become who I am now. Because about, I would say 6 years ago, after being on this journey and started to really question reality and, what is the point of all of this, and what is searching for meaning in life. I started to feel like I wanted to start a company of my own. I had worked with amazing men before in other organizations that I was senior designer in, and I'd had worked with Murphy-Bennis, who was my partner and husband at the time, and he started Bennis Design, and we got married and we joined forces at the time. And then around 6 years ago, I decided to start Flourish by Design. I wanted to focus on women and women's empowerment and women's support women in business. But as that evolved, I realized, and I started working with the students again, I realized that this part of the personal branding, which I had done in creating Flourish by Design, and creating my logo and creating my colors and the personality of who I was and expressed into a business, was such a unique expression of me, and it was very radical and very different in the design world, because I was talking about designing myself from the inside out. It was evolving from within me, and it was a mirror of my own path of self-discovery. I didn't understand the power at the time, and I started then working with the students, and I have many different workshops, and I teach them for a full year, with 24 weeks, we'll say, and I spend, my course students, I have them for 12 hours a week, so we really get so close to become like my daughters and my sons. But one of the workshops one of the modules I did with them was on personal branding, and it was one of the most powerful aspects that connected so much with them, and I felt it really set them up for success, which was looking at who they are, what do they stand for, what are they here to do. And I realized how empowering that was, and it was the first time that they had ever been given the opportunity to ask those questions, and for them to have that space of self-discovery, because they had spent all of their life up to that point, 20 years in schools, 15 years, and being, bombarded with information and told what to do and what to think and how to be. And they were never actually asked who they were from the inside out, and how they wanted it to be in the world, and how they could design themselves consciously to become who they truly wanted to be. It was such a powerful discovery with the students that I wanted to bring that out into the world and to women in a larger way. And on a deeper level then, when it came to just working with women themselves, I realized that it was hugely empowering in a deeper sense, is that it was like a cure for codependency also, because a lot of women, when they don't do that, they have formal education, but they don't have the education around really defining themselves and standing in their own power, that they often give their power away to a partner without realizing what they're actually doing. So in the process of setting up the students with the sense of who they are and allowing them to be able to really define that in themselves and to hold that true to themselves and hold that power their own power, and how they can actually have that self-worth and that self-confidence and that self-esteem for themselves going out into the world. And I was so excited to see one of my students recently there, fashion design student, and she's just graduated last year, and she has her new brand out, and it's all sustainable fashion actually for bikini wear. And just amazing to see that we had talked about all of that in the personal branding when she was in first year, and that she's held true to that throughout the years. And now she's in the world and she's expressing herself true to herself and to her beliefs and what she wants to be and who she wants to be in the world in a very confident way that is conscious of what she's creating in the world also. So examples like that are really, really beautiful, because when we define who we are and we don't move away from that, we can stand in our power, and then we can attract what is true to us around that. And when I see other women I've worked with dealing with codependency, and I'm looking at, when we think of, I always see this an analogy of when we have one person, and women sometimes say lean in, and they lose themselves and lose their identity in a man or into a partner, because they become dependent on their identity, not on their own identity and who they are. That can be really damaging for them. And if that falls away, then that's when that kind of breakdown, that invisibility happens, because they can't see themselves, because they don't have any idea of who their identity is. So when we pull it back, and we can see that when women have a strong sense of who they are and then stand on their own, that they can meet somebody who is of equal match to that. And then eventually then they can learn to bridge that gap together and meet in the middle. That's what we call a healthy relationship, where there's two people whose independent identities that are complementary. But it is really important for women and young women and girls to get a sense of that identity, that true identity inside and within themselves. So that's really where my passion has brought me to. And I feel it actually, what happens is then we become natural leaders. So when we do that work in ourselves to find out who we are, what we stand for, and what we're here to do, and then we can lean into those around us who match that, then we become natural leaders in the world, because we're modeling that. We're modeling that to other women. We're modeling that to our daughters and our sons around us, and everyone who's watching that. We become a supermodel, as I talk about, of how to be at home in yourself, to be proud of yourself, to be able to own your own brilliance, to feel that sense of self-worth, that self-esteem, that self-authority, that you have charge of your life, that you have a direction that you're going in, and that you feel empowered to be able to do that your creative power is a huge force for good in the world, and that when we own our own power, we are contributing hugely to the collective experience of life. So that was a heart-to-heart that I wanted to share with you tonight around owning our power, the journey of that, and what it really means to be empowered. Not power over, but power under and power with. But really, when it comes down to it, it's power from within. Okay, I hope that helped to find what journey we're going on and how it can be a support to you. And it really enlivens me to see the results of the workshops and the work that I've done with the students and the work that I'm working with the distilled company at the moment. And ladies, so delighted to have you here on this journey. I would say that when we start to do that work of bringing ourselves out and owning our power, we start to understand that a lot of that conditioning and that imposter syndrome and that critical inner voice that we hear is not our own, and that there is this beautiful truth of us that is yearning to come to the world, and that you will sparkle and shine like a diamond, like you should, over time, like with some commitment and support. And that's what I'm here for. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful week and take care. Thank you for watching. Lots of love. Bye.